Okay, I'm reviewing Fourth Wing. I think it's fair to say that Fourth Wing's cultural moment has passed. It's on the fourth book now. It's diminishing returns on all fronts from what I've heard. It's like low-hanging fruit. You don't need me to tell you that Fourth Wing is not good. But one person commented on one of my videos, please review Fourth Wing. That's honestly all it takes if you want me to review a book. Unless you want me to review the second Fourth Wing book, I will not be doing that. I've heard some conflicting things about Rebecca Yarros' politics, but just to be clear, I got the book secondhand. Me buying this only monetarily benefited Oxfam. Fourth Wing is about 20-year-old Violet Sorengale. Like soaring, she's gonna fly a dragon. Violet is from the Kingdom of Navarre. Navarre is at war with neighboring Pormiel? And as such, Navarre is constantly under attack from Pormiel's army of magical creatures called griffins and the Griffins Riders. Because of the war, which has been raging for hundreds of years, the Kingdom of Navarre has a large military who are trained at Basgiath War College. When you're 20, you take a test. If you fail, you are put into the infantry of the army. If you pass, you go to Basgiath College to train to be a scribe, a healer, or a rider. But dragon riders are Navarre's main defense against the griffin. Violet has trained her whole life to be a scribe, but her mother Lilith, a general in the dragon rider army, sees Violet training to be a scribe as a disgrace to the family name, so orders her instead to train to be a dragon rider despite Violet's many health problems. Violet's late father was actually a scribe, so Violet's mother sees being a scribe as so shameful that she would rather her daughter die than become one, but was also willing to marry and have children with a scribe. I can't imagine that marriage was healthy. Violent, that's her nickname later on. Violet is also frequently described as being very physically small, and every time it's mentioned, the image of her in my mind got smaller and smaller until she was like Thumbelina size. All around, Violet has a peak 2000s character description. She's super pale with eyes that change color in the light, and she has hair that's naturally brown at the top and white at the bottom. It's very ebony, darkness, dementia, raven way. Her color changing, mood ring eyes, and dip-dyed hair. Becoming a dragon rider is incredibly difficult as it involves bonding with a dragon, and if they deem you unworthy, they will kill you on sight. Once you bond with a dragon, you develop a psychic bond with it, and also you develop a signet, which is like an X-Men power. Violet's mother insists that during training, Violet won't get any special treatment just because you're my daughter either. They'll come after you harder. I think that's what those Nepo baby actors think. Actually, I managed to become a successful actor despite my father owning Paramount Pictures, not because of it. Violet's sister Mira is also a dragon rider, and so was her now dead brother Brennan. Violet's dead brother is a big part of the story. He has left her a book with notes on how to survive the dragon training. He is mentioned a lot. Everybody misses him and thinks he was great. I would defy anyone not to predict that he is still alive. One of the least shocking characters alive reveals I've ever read. That includes Rose in Chains. Violet must go through a series of tests to prove she is capable of becoming a dragon rider. The testing system in Fourth Wing makes no sense, of course. It really seems like they want to give the students the least chance possible to make it through these tests, and it's mostly based on luck rather than skill. The first test is to walk across a parapet, a thin wall of a building. If you fall, you die. If you make it across, you are in Dragon Rider training. I think they call it something other than Dragon Rider training, but I can't remember. Before the first test, Mira gives Violet a protective dragon scale corset, which she will wear for the rest of the book, and also gives her secret insider advice the other candidates aren't getting. Her super secret special advice for walking across the slippery wall is wear grippy shoes. So they're not telling them basic things like what boots to wear. Seems like they want them to die. At the same time, it should be very obvious that you shouldn't be wearing slippery shoes to walk across a thin walkway in a test of your balance. So this insider knowledge is like telling someone not to wear stilettos to run a marathon. Self-evident, no. Doesn't reflect well on Violet that she had to be told this. Mira also tells Violet that after she has passed the test, she should find Dane, a second-year student who is Violet's childhood friend, and that she should avoid Xaden Rearson. Xaden is a fellow dragon rider whose father was killed by Violet and Mira's mother, so Mira thinks he will try to kill Violet at any given chance. Violet gets ready to take the first test, and while she waits, she meets two people, Rhiannon, who will become her best friend, and Dylan, who from the first sentence you know isn't long for this world. Dylan is a very one day from retirement character. His introduction is him saying, "Wow, being a dragon rider is my dream," and "I won't die. I want this too much." And talking about his girlfriend, like, "When I get home, I'm going to marry that girl." There's a big neon arrow pointing at Dylan, saying, "This guy is about to die," and he does. Violet also runs into Xaden, who threatens her life. In spite of this, she is instantly attracted to him. Romances where people hate each other but feel this overwhelming, all-consuming attraction, to me always reads kind of like body horror. He is threatening her life and she is thinking, oh, but his eyes are so beautiful. The characters have these horrible sexual impulses that are making them act in ways that go against their best interest. It's like the movie Shivers. Whilst she does her walk, Violet's trick to steadying her nerves is reciting very simple world-building facts to herself. Awful exposition, way more distracting than just writing a paragraph explaining it. And what's worse is the author probably thought this was very smart. Must be weird for everyone walking behind her. Like imagine you're walking across a tightrope and the girl behind you is yelling out the major exports of different countries. I would presume this was some sort of effort to psych me out. Another character, Jack, who will become a minor antagonist in the book, tries to push Violet off the wall, but fails. For the rest of the book, he will be obsessed with killing Violet above pretty much anything else, because she is the main character and everything has to revolve around her. Violet survives the first test and is greeted by her childhood friend, Dane. Dane is very protective of Violet because of her health issues and tries to convince her to drop out of Dragon Rider training and become a scribe instead. But Violet knows her mother would never allow this. Violet has a disability, chronic pain, and is easily injured, but apart from a few mentions of injuries, it doesn't affect her as much as I would have expected. Given all the talk around the book about its disability representation, it seems to be mainly a problem for her because of how other people tell her it is, like Dane and Mira. A love triangle is being set up between Violet, Dane, and Xaden, but Dane is a non-entity. The man is absolutely radiating disposable secondary love interest energy. 15% of the candidates fall and die, so there are about 70 people left. All the survivors now assigned to different wing groups, of which there are 4. This fourth wing? It's a bit more complex than that. What's important is that Violet and Rhiannon are assigned to second wing, but Xaden pulls some strings and they are reassigned to fourth wing. Fourth wing is led by wing leader Xaden. Fourth wing! It's the title! The procedure to become a dragon rider is explained. The dragon chooses the rider, and if you show any weakness at any point, you will be killed. If you make any mistake, you will be killed. And if any other candidate wants you dead, they will kill you. If you break any of the rules, you'll be killed, and a lot of people just kind of die by accident. Roughly half of you will be dead by this time next summer. The formation is silent except for a few untimely sobs from my left. A third of you again the year after that, and the same year last year. If you have a society at war, it seems very inefficient to have this system set up where all these strong young people are senselessly killed, not even in the field, but in training, just from a practical standpoint. It's almost encouraged for the candidates to kill each other, which seems like a very bad way to generate camaraderie between people who will have to work together in a military strategy setting. They want them to be cutthroat, ruthless individualists while also making them do all these team building activities. The killing is like purge rules though. They can only do it at certain times. Later in the book, a group of students try to kill Violet in her room and are sentenced to death for attempting this, but Jack is just killing people all the time and it's completely fine. Seems arbitrary. I don't know why anybody is signing up to become a dragon rider. It's an almost guaranteed death sentence, and then the military are wondering, why are we having such a recruitment problem? Why does nobody sign up to be burned to death? A lot of the training involves sparring. I don't think a lot of sparring will be going on when they're riding the dragons, but because of Violet's size and medical condition, she has to be strategic because she cannot work with brute strength alone. So her solution is to start poisoning her opponent's foods and hoping the effect kicks in just as they are about to fight. It's not a great plan, but it works because it needs to for the story to progress. One evening, when Violet is going out to collect poisonous berries, she overhears Xaden having a secret meeting with other marked riders. Marked riders are the children of people who were involved in the Tyrish Rebellion, which was a plot for one of the provinces of Nevers to gain independence. It failed, and the children of the rebels are conscripted into the army and forced to become dragon riders. Xaden is one of these children, and so are the other people he's meeting with. In terms of military strategy, we will capture all the children of our enemies and put them in leadership roles in our dragon army. Does not seem sound. It's like giving prisoners of war the nuclear codes. Sometimes being a dragon rider is this elite, prestigious thing that people are desperate to do, but also they're having to force people to do it, and also nobody wants to volunteer to do it, but everybody who does volunteer thinks it's the best thing ever. Xaden's gathering is illegal because marked riders are not allowed to meet up in groups over 3. He catches Violet listening in on them and confronts her, but as they were only talking about strategy for classes, Violet sees no reason to tell anybody about their meeting. Xaden says he will owe her a favor if she follows through on not reporting them. Violet's strategy of poisoning people is going fine until one of her opponents succumbs to the effects of poisoning too early and she has to spar Xaden instead. They have this very sexually charged sparring session in a room full of other people. Even in this situation where Violet is thinking about how much she hates him, there are endless descriptions of how hot he is. I have to read some of it out now. My breath catches and my body warms, the traitorous bitch. Didn't feel good saying that. You are not attracted to toxic men, I remind myself. I have been since the first second I saw him, if I feel like being honest. This is writing in a fantasy novel. Toxic men, traitorous bitch, okay. Xaden reveals to her that he knows she's been poisoning people in order to win her sparring sessions. The next time they interact is when Violet is walking through the courtyard and she sees Xaden and his cousin Bodhi returning from somewhere. They're having a very suspicious conversation where they're saying things like, there must be more that we can do. A lot of plot points revolve around Violet just coincidentally overhearing something. I didn't even mention that Xaden's nickname for Violet is Violence. Xaden notices Violet eavesdropping on them and threatens her some more, and he grabs her as she tries to walk away. He's threatening her, but she is focusing on how good he smells, like mint and leather and something I can't quite identify, something that borders between citrus and floral. Okay, nose like a bloodhound apparently. In romantic fiction, everyone smells like 5 things at once, like notes on a perfume. The next test before they are allowed to attempt to bond with the dragons is called the Gauntlet, and it's an obstacle course that Violet's having a hard time completing because she's so small. She has to use daggers to help her climb, and one of the other wing leaders, Amber, thinks that this counts as cheating. But Violet is allowed to pass the test, and Amber will hold a grudge. Violet and the other trainees then have to do a threshing. This is a walk through a field full of dragons. It's like a runway walk, so all the dragons can get like a look at them. And if any dragons don't like the look of you, they will kill you. You're meant to like the dragons in Fourth Wing, but they murder people all the time because they think the candidates are too weak to be riders, but they can just not pick them to be their riders. Why kill them? The dragons in the book are just evil. One of the dragons Violet sees on her walk is a feathertail, a rare type that doesn't usually bond with humans. And the other special dragon that is available to bond with is a black dragon that is the largest dragon in the fleet. They are like the shiny Pokemon of dragons. After the threshing, the first years who haven't been needlessly burnt to death go into another field to find a dragon they want to bond with. The evil guy tries to kill Violet all the time, and a group of his cronies decide they are going to kill the feather-tailed dragon because they think it's weak. Their reasoning for this is nonsensical. The other dragons will not like one of their own being killed, so it won't improve their chances of bonding, and it will almost certainly get them killed, as dragons love killing people. Even if they succeed, what could they possibly gain from doing this? It's just a plot contrivance so that Violet can protect the dragon and bond with it. Because of her act of bravery, she also bonds with the super special black dragon, Karen. She is the only person ever to bond with 2 dragons, and also the dragons she bonds with are the most special ones because she is the most specialist girl who ever lived. Xaden's dragon Sigale is mated with Karen, so now Violet and Xaden are also bonded through their dragons. And there's a possibility that if one of them dies, they both die. When Dane finds out about the double bond, he doubles down on getting Violet to quit being a rider. Dane's insistence that Violet drops out of the dragon rider training program gets very annoying, especially when we get to the middle of the book and Violet repeatedly insists that she wants to be there and she likes it and she's actively succeeding at being a dragon rider. He kisses her and she feels nothing. She tells him that the reason they can't be together romantically is because he doesn't believe in her, even after she has become the strongest cadet. Her little speech is undermined slightly by how luck-based success seems to be in the Dragon Rider training. Violet has plot armor, but she almost died multiple times already. For everyone else, it's even worse. Your rope randomly snaps, you die. You look a dragon in the eyes by mistake, you die. You lose your grip while you're riding the dragon, you die. The first trial is just a balance on rocks, and Violet Violet nearly dies multiple times, and it's just luck that she doesn't. No one is immune to slippery rocks. You cannot outsmart slippery rocks. The fact that Violet is bonded to 2 dragons is a scandal within the military, but the Council of Dragons sees no problem with it, so it's allowed. But this causes a lot of resentment with the candidates who haven't found a dragon to bond with yet, and 6 of them break into Violet's room one night to kill her. Do they think this will endear the dragons to them, and once she dies, the dragons will bond with one of them? I don't think so. Xaden rescues her by killing these people in front of her. I think this is supposed to be hot, but extreme acts of violence committed in front of me would not be hot. And she's still thinking about how good Xaden looks during the murders. Like, oh, the way his bicep flexed when he cut that woman's throat. One of the attackers, Amber, who is the wing leader with the vendetta against Violet and the ringleader of the attacks, manages to escape, but is later sentenced to death. Xaden just killed 6 people. Liam is killing people all the time, but no matter how underhanded or psychotic they behave, they did it in the correct way. So it's fine. Honor among murderers, I guess. Dane was friends with Amber and doesn't believe Violet when she says Amber attacked her. So he tries to use his signet against her, which is the power to read people's recent memories. If you had any hope of Dane being redeemed, it's now gone. Xaden assigns his foster brother Liam to protect Violet. Liam, like Dylan from earlier, has not long for this world energy. Because Taryn and Sigale are dragon married, Violet and Xaden are both physically affected by the dragon's emotions. So one night when the dragons are mating, the 2 of them kiss. All the dragon bond stuff. This is meant to be romantic. They are fated to be together. They can never be parted. But the magical destruction of Violet's free will and her forced proximity to this man she's afraid of. I don't think the fear is particularly sexy. In the next training session, Violet and Jack have to spar each other. She uses his allergy of citrus against him by pouring juice in his mouth. This must have looked ridiculous to onlookers. The next test is a squad battle. Violet's squad wins the competition, and the reward is being sent to the front lines. Some reward. The outpost they are sent to is where Mira, Violet's sister, is stationed. Mira gives Violet a book of fables that their father had left her. The magical creatures Venin are mentioned, but according to Navarre leadership, the Venin are a myth. Xaden shows up because his and Violet's dragons can't be apart for too long, or they could both possibly die. The outpost is attacked, and Violet wants to stay to help Mira, but Xaden makes sure that they escape. Violet is distraught when they return to the college, but she eventually receives the news that Mira has survived the attack. They have another one of their war games tests, and during it, Jack tries to kill Violet and Liam is injured. Violet's signet manifests its lightning powers. This is apparently super special, but I think I would be pretty disappointed with lightning powers. Other signets include astral projection and reading minds and stopping time. When her powers manifest, she kills Jack. She has a bit of a emotional crisis after killing him and is unable to deal with the fact that she has killed someone. But she's in the army, she has a dragon, and she turned down any chance to leave. What did she expect would happen? What did she think she was in the dragon army to do if not kill? And at this point, a lot of people have died because of her. Xaden killed 6 people because they tried to hurt her. Anyway, she's not that caught up about it because the same night she and Xaden end up having sex. A lot of the descriptions of Violet's size are paired with descriptions of how big Xaden is. No, not that way. And in these interactions, there's an emphasis on how Violet finds him physically intimidating and how he looms over her threateningly. I know this dynamic of big, ambiguously dangerous man with tiny woman is something that a lot of people enjoy reading, and I don't want to moralize or shame women for what they enjoy reading, which is what a lot of critique of romantic books seems to dissolve into. Just scolding women for liking problematic things, like they are incapable of separating fantasy from reality. But while I don't want to get into the sexual politics of this right now, there are some wider sociological reasons why this is a fantasy for so many women and why it is pushed so heavily in romance media. Putting all that aside, just personally, I do not find any of this romantic or appealing in any way. I just feel uncomfortable. I don't want to read about physically intimidating men with anger issues, having romantic relationships with the tiny, delicate women. And I hate Xaden as a character. He's unbearable, he's arrogant and rude. The way he uses his physical presence to intimidate Violet is unpleasant to read. And he has an air of barely restrained violence and emotional instability. After they have sex, Violet says that if they want to continue having a relationship, he needs to tell her about himself and asks him some questions, including where he and his cousin had returned from when she saw them in the courtyard. He tells her Athbine. There is a big party on the anniversary of the end of the rebellion, which was when Xaden's father was killed. So realizing this will probably not be a time of celebration for him, Violet goes to try and find him, and this is when she realizes she's in love with him. She says to him, "You want me," I say, looking him in the eyes, and no, I'm not just talking about in bed. You want me, Xaden Rierson. I can't read out any more of that. This word, full stop, word, full stop, word. Sentence structure is a staple of the book. She loves doing this. This dialogue is just a series of cliches. A problem with Fourth Wing and a lot of romance novels is that I cannot imagine these two having an in-depth conversation that isn't about the plot. If you took away physical attraction, there would be nothing left. I think that's a good metric for how compelling a romantic relationship is. Would these two people still be interested in each other once they're 70? If you put them in a room and told them they couldn't touch, but they could talk as long as what they were talking about wasn't how hot they found each other, would they have an engaging conversation? I can't really imagine Violet and Xaden talking about like art or philosophy or whatever. I think they would just sit there in silence. They go to Xaden's room and the most cringe sex scene takes place. Dialogue is very bad. It's mostly pretty bland. You're mine. I'd die without you. But it's also kind of threatening sounding sometimes. He's saying he can't control himself around her. I'm not gonna do a voice. No. I need you, Violet, right now, and I don't need anyone, so I'm not quite sure how to handle this feeling, but I am giving it my best. Ooh, clunky. And if you don't want this tonight, that's fine, but I'm going to need you to walk out that door right now, because if you don't, I'm going to have you naked on your back in the next 2 minutes. After this, Violet thinks, even if this man loses every ounce of his self-control, I know he'll never hurt me. Do you? Oh, there's another bit that I'll read. Violet says, "Oh gods." And then Xaden says, "Which one are you calling out for?" he asks against my flesh. Because it's just you and me in this room, by it. I don't share. You. My fingers tangle in his hair. I'm calling out for you. Oh God. I appreciate the elevation to deity, but my name will do. Imagine a man actually saying that to you. They keep making these like cringy quips and comments to each other. Maybe you should just both stop talking and focus on what you're doing. I actually can't say a lot of this. Not appropriate for YouTube. Just trust me, it's a lot. Her lightning powers go off during and break all the windows. Reading this and then turning to the back and seeing Rebecca Yarros, thank God, in her acknowledgements. Whiplash. Someone comes to the door to tell them there's been an attack and that all the riders have to report in. But this turns out to be a drill and is actually the final test. Violet is meant to go with Dane's squad, but Xaden orders her to come with him. Before they go, Dane and Violet have a conversation and he brushes his hand against her face. They fly to Athbine, which is outside of Navarre's wards. It is revealed that Xaden and the other marked riders have secretly been aiding the Griffin Flyers by providing them weapons so that they can kill the Venin. There's a subplot with the book that Violet has from her dad and the Venin. I don't want to get into it, but the important part is that Venin are a mythical creature that the leadership of Navarre has been saying is a myth. Violet feels very betrayed by all of this. Xaden and the others realize they've been set up by Dane. When Dane brushed his hand against Violet's face earlier, he was reading her memory, and one of the memories was Xaden mentioning Athbine. So Dane tells his father, who is a colonel, and they've been sent to Athbine to die. The militarism in Fourth Wing is very odd. In the author's blurb at the back, it says, "Rebecca loves military heroes," which I thought was one very American and just a strange thing to say in an author's biography. And then you read the book and it's so relevant. Fourth Wing is about the army. Violet is training to be a soldier, and Basgiath War College is obviously a boot camp. When Violet says she wants to be a scribe instead of a dragon rider, all the characters are like, why would you want to be a lame academic when you could join the military instead? But also the military is pictured as being flawed and corrupt, but being a soldier is cool. This is the kind of contradictory logic a lot of people have about the military. There is a big battle where they all have to fight the Venin creatures. Liam is killed. Violet is knocked out. She wakes up in a new location and meets her brother, who she thought was dead. He is part of the rebellion against Nevers. Okay, we are done. I think you can tell the difference between a writer who is writing a book like this because they like fantasy and one who is writing a book like this because they write romance, and fantasy romance is the current trend and way to get published. You can tell this was written by a romance novel writer and not by a fantasy writer. Rebecca Yarros has written like 100 novels, but she's never written any fantasy. And don't get me wrong, writing romance is a skill that is impressive. And if you are a professional author, of course you want to write books that will get you published. There's nothing wrong with that. It's your job. This is her being business savvy as a writer. Taming the alpha billionaire or dominated by the oil tycoon aren't doing numbers anymore. Now you need to tame the fairy billionaire or be dominated by the oil tycoon, but also there are dragons there. But yeah, there is a feeling of Rebecca Yarros' heart not entirely being in the fantasy elements of this book. A lot of the best fantasy is influenced by folklore and myth and other fantasy writing. Tolkien was influenced by Celtic mythology and like Beowulf. Obviously, J.R.R. Martin is a big Tolkien fan. He's very open about this. But A Song of Ice and Fire is also influenced by Tudor history and the War of the Roses. Something like the Ursula K. Le Guin Earthsea series is influenced by Taoist beliefs. Or like I read some of Marlon James's fantasy novel, which is about post-colonialism and is influenced by African myths. And Fourth Wing does not have any of that. You can tell it was influenced by popular culture. It's a cobbled together mix of A Song of Ice and Fire and Divergent. Oh god, I forgot to mention the magical dragon tattoos that were very Divergent. But it feels derivative because it's not a complex reworking and mixing of influences and mythology and layering of different real-world beliefs and histories. What is the mythology? There's a battle between two countries. There's dragons that give you X-Men powers. Apart from people saying, oh gods, instead of oh god, a romantasy staple. Everyone speaks like a millennial. It just doesn't have the feeling of a fantasy book that's interested in being fantasy. I don't think you necessarily need a lot of world building. Fantasy novels where it's more fairy tale-esque and inconsistent and metaphorical can be very good. But Fourth Wing is more of an attempt at epic world building that has failed. For an example of another romantasy book I feel did this better, I read Cruel Prince. I didn't love it, not for me, but you could definitely tell that Holly Black likes fantasy, writes fantasy, reads fantasy, and that she knows a lot about fairy mythology. I could tell that Rebecca Yarros has seen some Game of Thrones, but she doesn't write like she has a deep passion for fantasy as a genre. There aren't references to mythology or other fantasy novels. She has named her characters using Gaelic Google Translate and infamously didn't bother looking up how to pronounce the words. Her world building isn't very deep. There's anachronistic elements like people talking about indoor plumbing. Everybody talks in modern casual American speech. This was not good. Okay, this was bad. It wasn't like incompetently written though. Rebecca Yarros is good at what she's doing, but what she's doing isn't any good. Apparently Fourth Wing is still relevant. They're making a TV series. One of the writers from Breaking Bad is involved. You would think she'd have better things to do, but apparently not.